Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you are all well today. My name is Dr. Linda McMurdoch. I am the Vice President for Student Affairs here at Mount St. Mary's University in Los Angeles. I am standing in for Shannon Green, our director of the CSJ Institute here. So I'm hoping that I can do just a scotch of as good a job as she would, given her excitement about the conference and about the Sisters of St. Joseph. I am here because Shannon Green is actually on the Liberty pilgrimage with, I think, about 10 or 15 other pilgrims from our various institutions, learning more about our sisters. So I bring you greetings from Los Angeles. When the CSJ Institute was founded in 2016 at Mount St. Mary's, we began searching for ways to bring the incredible stories of the Sisters of St. Joseph to life. Mother St. Jean Fontbonne had a long life with many dramatic moments, proving her to be a courageous, loving, and discerning leader. This led up to the missioning of sisters to the United States, and thus our presence here today. The question remained how to tell such a long and complex life story. Well, when Shannon Green saw Tiffany Hoover perform short monologues of saintly women, she knew we had found at least one way to tell the story. Ms. Hoover was commissioned to write the monologue with the intention of debuting the performance on our campus in March of 2020, and we all know what happened in March of 2020. So although we were unable to host the performance at the time due to the pandemic here at the Mount, Tiffany was able to share her work with the Carondelet High School in Concord, California, for their senior retreats. And finally, after much anticipation, Tiffany brought her performance to the Mount for CSJ Week this past March. Many of our sisters were present and were deeply moved by the experience. And I must say also our students. And thankfully, we filmed it so that we can all enjoy it virtually today. Tiffany Hoover, who is joining us today from St. Joseph's College, has been acting in the San Francisco Bay Area for over 25 years. She holds 2 degrees in theater, a Bachelor of Arts from University of California, Santa Barbara, and a Master of Arts from University of California, Davis. In addition, Tiffany completed a Master of Theological Studies from the Graduate Theological Union's Franciscan School of Theology. Tiffany has been serving in the Catholic Church in many forms, most notably as a lector and preacher. She has also enjoyed serving as an officiant for weddings and memorial services. In addition to her acting career, she also works as a fitness professional. Tiffany's experiences and education have fueled her desire to marry her passions for theater and theology by writing and performing biographical monologues for strong women of faith. And as the only women's institution in Los Angeles, we thank her deeply for that endeavor. At the conclusion of the film, Tiffany will engage us in a question and answer period moderated by my dear colleague, Meredith Lynch, the Assistant Director for the CSJ Institute. So with that, I turn it back over to our conference leaders. Thank you and enjoy the conference. It's going to be wonderful.
Hi, I am Tiffany Hoover. Thank you so much, Linda, for that introduction. And yes, Shannon would definitely approve. I wanted to start my little introduction with a prayer. God of simplicity, we awaken to a new day, and we ask that you help us to hold things lightly, with palms open to receive the gifts that come. We know we must release that which no longer serves us to make room for the new that awaits us. We lay open our whole lives to you, trusting you, O Holy One. Amen. So I do want to thank, first of all, the Association of the Colleges of the Sisters of St. Joseph, and particularly Martha Malinsky, for inviting me and Mother St. John in spirit to, to this lovely gathering on this lovely campus. I was fortunate enough to come. A special shout out to Mount St. Mary's. As you heard, they are the ones, particularly Shannon Green, who commissioned me and trusted me with this endeavor to create this monologue and perform it. So let me give you just a little bit of background on how I started this whole journey. Continuing with what Linda told you, is these monologues, the first monologues that I wrote, were a part of my thesis when I was working on my master's in theological studies. And I had a difficult time choosing what women I wanted to present. I knew I wanted to marry my passions of theater, theology, and strong spiritual women. I eventually chose Saint Teresa of Avila, Ruth from the Old Testament, as well as Dorothy Day. All of these women are diverse. They're diverse in character, but they're unified in their devotion to God and into serving others and in taking action in the midst of great adversity. So I wrote and I started performing these pieces individually at churches and high schools and middle schools, much to my son's chagrin at the time, I'm sure. I even was invited, and have been recently, to take some of my monologues and perform them in the middle of a service for the Methodists as part of their sermon. And then I was invited, and one of my good girlfriends said, "Hey, why don't we put on a show in my backyard of all of your women?" So that is how I created my one-woman show, Seekers and Saints, Women of Transformation, including these 3 women I just spoke about. And then I started performing them together as this one-woman show, various places, Mount St. Mary's, yes, and St. Mary's College in Moraga, California, as well as other high schools and churches. Well, fast forward, as we heard, to sometime after 2016, when Shannon began telling me about Mother St. John. Shannon and I went to college together, so we have that history. And I just was captivated by her. I heard some of her traits that moved me were her humility, first of all. I mean, she definitely doubted her capabilities, but she trusted her instincts and she followed God's call to lead. And her tenacity, she respectfully questioned authority. Her intense faith, she trusted utterly in God and followed God's call and will throughout her life. And her devotion to her family and her drive to serve all humans, no matter their class, no matter their circumstances, which you know all very well, to love and to serve our dear neighbor without distinction and to respond to the needs of the world around us. Well, this particular charism of Mother St. John and the CSJs resounds deeply for me. I mean, there's something to be said about people being willing to respond in the moment to whatever need presents, whatever person presents themselves that is in need. And I find this obviously honorable, but I also find it brave, because from an actor's perspective, this is captivating. The first rule, a lot of people may know, of improv is to say yes and. So you always say yes to whatever you're offered, and then you pursue the conversation, the action, with whatever may lead into it. So I find that pretty amazing, because being in the moment and responding and to the needs of whatever may happen, it takes courage, it takes open-mindedness, it takes a willingness to be a listener in the moment and and to lead. So one of the things that, well, first of all, the diversity of the people that the Sisters of St. Joseph serve is absolutely inspiring to me. And I do find this courageous. Lastly, I just want to talk a little bit about my acting process. So I'm often asked, first of all, how do I memorize all of those lines? Well, I mean, that's definitely a challenge, especially as you get older. But the biggest challenge really is finding a way to connect to our character, the character I'm presenting, and in a realistic, based in their truth. So, for instance, when I was starting to work on St. Teresa of Avila, I was confounded about how I was going to connect with her, because she had visions. She called them spiritual delights. God appeared to her. And I don't know if you know this, but she also levitated. Now, I did not ever figure out how to include that in my performance. But I have to say, I was confounded by how I was going to find a way to connect. But I did. Her ability to laugh at herself very convincingly, that's something that has made me feel like I can connect to her as a person. And then, of course, looking to Mother St. John Fontbonne, I feel like there's so many, she has so many comments, so many traits that are inspiring, but her kindness and her delight in connecting and nurturing relationships with her sisters, with the community, and her desire to build and nourish the community and to lead in the midst of great chaos. This tremendous loyalty that Mother St. John showed to the church is quite awe-inspiring. And I can wrap my head a little bit around having loyalty towards the people in the church. But as you know, Mother St. John, she showed her allegiance to the institution. And to me, that is a little more nebulous and challenging. The most stunning thing about Mother St. John to me is her willingness, well, besides her willingness to embrace martyrdom in prison, is her ability to let go and to hold things lightly. Holding something lightly means to me that we are more comfortable with uncertainty and challenge. We're open to different perspectives and can approach challenges with a more flexible mindset. We can say yes, and we can do that with a little more ease. Another way to let go and to hold things lightly is to just shift our perspective. And I feel like that's what Mother St. John constantly did, and the Sisters of St. Joseph. Instead of focusing on what we're holding on to, we can focus on what we gain by letting go. And holding lightly what you value greatly is so important, because it all belongs to God anyway. On that note, I will hope that you will enjoy this performance that we're about to see of Mother St. John, Love Without Distinction.
Well, that was amazing. Thank you, Tiffany. And thank you everyone for being with us. As Linda shared, I am Meredith Lynch. I am the Assistant Director of the CSJ Institute. And each time that I watch that monologue, I really find that I find a new piece of it that I connect with. And I think that's so true for all of us as we, study the history of the Sisters of St. Joseph. You might feel called to one piece of their story more. And even just in the story of Mother St. John, today, I was thinking a little bit about my own sisters who I'm planning a trip with. And I couldn't help but laugh when you talked a bit about the close relationship that Mother St. John had with her sister Marie. I'm going to go ahead and open this up to Q&A. And I'm seeing in here, Laura Gomez, who is our Assistant Director of Campus Ministry, says, no questions, just applause and more applause. And I agree, Laura. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up to questions. And you can put them in the chat. And I'll even say this, if anyone's having a really hard time using the chat feature, feel free to text me your questions and I will put my number in right here and I will check those as well. So that's there as well. Question that just came in, Tiffany, is why do you think that Mother St. John first refused the blessing of the cornerstone? What do you think that says about her?
I think that it actually, first of all, thanks, Meredith. I think that it actually is she is responding out of humility. I mean, it wasn't about her. I mean, it was about the work and the efforts that she was, wanting to push the women forward and the men, and the work of the Sisters of St. Joseph. So having her name on the cornerstone, and blessing the cornerstone, I think it just seemed probably frivolous to her is my reaction.
Yes. And, I think it also speaks to that, our sisters are one of their characteristics is humility, right? So this is a great question from Heather Jocelyn Cranston. How did you get a sense of Mother St. John's personality and her character?
Very, very good question. Very difficult because what I'm working off of, are just the words of, what particularly Abbe Rivaux wrote in his book. And also a picture, literally we have a sketch of Mother St. John. So really what I have focused on, as I mentioned earlier, is the kindness and her sense of play. She loved her sisters so much, her obviously her blood sister, but all of the sisters so much. And it just came through in everything she did. She did that, yes, everything for God, but she wanted to lift them up. So yes.
Great. Thank you so much. Great question here from Dan Leahy at Regis College. And Dan says, thank you. In what ways do you think that young people today may relate to the story of Mother St. John Fontbonne?
That is a great question, and particularly relevant because I was able to share this monologue many times at Carondelet High School in the East Bay of San Francisco, close to where I live. And I did get a lot of really wonderful responses from these, 17, 18, 19-year-olds, particularly because we started it at, towards the end of the pandemic. They're all in their masks and they could relate to the fact that Mother St. John, felt, well, she was in prison, so she had no way to participate in her vows. And then the many years after, when she wasn't in prison any longer, it hit home for the young women because of the pandemic. Because, she was confined to prison. She was confined to, she was hiding in her family's home. And then the revolution still, it's ended, but there's no sisters for her to rejoin, no convents. And so she is, again, just stuck in a place that doesn't allow her to fully serve. And I know that the young people, all of us felt that way during the pandemic. We couldn't do what we were, meant to do. We weren't, our vocations weren't continuing, whatever they were. So I think in that respect, yeah. And I think her solid devotion to her faith and her sisters, I think anyone, just like what you said, Meredith, is that anyone can relate to the fact that she just adored her sister Marie and the rest of her family too. That was something that I wanted to make sure I brought into the monologue so that people understood, that she was a three-dimensional character. Going back to the other question, it's like, how do how do you flesh out this woman that you don't know, you've never met, you don't have any recordings of her, and those are the ways is finding their relationships that you know the writings tell us about, and moving forward in that way.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yes, I know. One of the things that I'm always so struck by with Mother St. John is both her practicality, but also just how much love and joy she had. In the quote that you shared, and I'll probably not get it right, so maybe you can say it to me about love.
Oh, now you're putting me on the spot. Thanks, Meredith. It is, I mean, it is so, you know, we're meant to love each other. It is so great to be loved, and it is God's will, you know, which I think is kind of her little, you know, I don't know, tenacious way of saying, so you better do it. You know, I just think it's kind of a sweet thing, you know, to say, let, you know, she found it wonderful to be able to have picnics on the grounds and share these stories with her sisters. But then she also slides in, and it's God's will, you know, which I think is kind of sweet.
Yes, I think now what we would probably say is that she had a great understanding of work-life balance, right?
Amen.
Another great question that we have in here from Vernon at St. Joe's in Brooklyn, our hosts, is, after learning Mother St. John's story, what impact did it have on you personally?
A lot. I think, you know, as an actor, well, I think anyone, when you're about to speak in front of a group of people, there's a lot of anxiety and worry that you're not going to be up to snuff. So with Mother St. John, I just feel like she channels. I've channeled her. Oh my goodness, I just forgot the question.
That's okay. That's okay. You were feeling, you know, the spirit of Mother St. John. So let's say it again. It was, you know, when you were working on this, what impact did it have on you personally? You got caught up in the spirit of Mother St. John.
I honestly was. And sorry, Vernon. Yes, what impacted me? I mean, I think the thing that what I was leading to is, whenever you're in a moment of anxiety or stress, hopefully we as faithful people find that moment to connect to God. And so my way of being in that moment of presenting Mother St. John was to remember, as I said earlier, about holding things lightly and knowing that I'm going to mess up, and this is not going to be a perfect performance. Just like watching the film is so hard for me. But yeah, I mean, it's remembering that what she provides is this, how the line of God's Spirit emboldened me, which is one of my favorite lines, you know, that I lifted straight out of the text. That's what I think is impactful for me, because I appear that I'm emboldened the way I present myself, but, you know, underneath there's this, oh no, can I do this? You know, which we all have, self-doubt. And so I just feel like that spirit, as you said, Meredith, of Mother St. John, I bring her with me, you know, particularly, of course, when I'm presenting her, but I bring her with me in just everyday life, because and the Sisters of St. Joseph. I mean, learning about the charism that I'm sure I'm hoping there's a lot of nods out there, because it's an amazing charism, and it's just, anyway, I think I said enough there.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yes, I'm nodding, and I would gather that many other are nodding as well at home or at their office. Here's a question for you. You've done a lot of these monologues about other really remarkable women. Dorothy Day, you have a couple of others. Are there through line traits that you see in women like Mother St. John and Dorothy Day and St.
Saint
Teresa? And some of
Teresa.
yeah, are there sort of like qualities that stand out to you that these women have that allow them to be these type of leaders?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the first thing that comes to mind is their ferocity. I mean, their fierceness, their courageous devotion to do the right thing. I mean, with Dorothy Day, I'm hoping some people have some experience with her, but wow, I mean, she wasn't even Catholic, and she ended up serving the Catholic, worker Catholic Church for so many years. But yeah, I think that deep ferocity of intention to feel like, what you have to say is not necessarily about you, but it is about God and the work that God is calling anyone to do. And that's what I think all of these women, and the loyalty that they all show towards, I mean, you think about the book of Ruth, her loyalty towards Naomi. I mean, she followed that woman. She changed her religion. She was like the first convert, I mean, she did everything to be loyal to this family, this woman, and to this new, Yahweh that she didn't know. So yeah, I just think that's what strikes me first.
Yeah, fantastic. Just looking in some of the comments, Sister Carol Allen says, as a sister of St. Joseph, I appreciate your dedication to the details, to the spirit of Mother St. John, and to the love of the dear neighbor. You caught the depth of who she was. Thank you for a fabulous performance. I will echo that sentiment. And this is an interesting question. This is an interesting question that would put you perhaps on a pilgrimage of your own. From Ryan Martin Spencer. Hi, Ryan. Have you performed the wonderful monologue for our sisters in France, or do you have plans to do so?
I have not, and I would love to. I can you get me an invitation?
I don't know. We might need to talk to my supervisor.
I know you can't. Yes, but I mean, honestly, because I've heard about the pilgrimage for so many years now. I mean, it's been a good, I don't know, 7 years, maybe, or somewhere in there. And hearing about, all the places that I learned about creating this monologue. Yes, it would be so special to be able to bring it to the women and anyone who would be interested over there. Yes. So who asked me that? Because then maybe we can ask him if he can connect us.
So that was Ryan Martin Spencer.
Okay, Ryan Martin Spencer, please
one of our
figure
friends
out a way
at
for
LP.
me.
Right? And I'll say the thing that's pretty interesting about the pilgrimage is, even though we don't think of Le Puy and Mother St. John as connected, she did have time in Le Puy, and that is part of her story. So really, the pilgrimage really does follow also just the life of Mother St. John in many ways. So it would be a really, I think, powerful experience to have you do that, and perhaps you could do something in the house. So that's pretty incredible.
Right.
And Dave Armstrong at Avila asks this question, and Avila is named after Saint Teresa. What strikes you as you consider both of these women? What similarities would you draw between the two? Do you believe Mother St. John was aware and inspired by Saint Teresa?
That's something I've asked myself, because that seemed like such a wonderful connection for me as I was developing the character of Mother St. John, since I had Saint Teresa already embedded. I would have to say yes. I don't have the historical grounding of it, but the facts. But yes, I would absolutely think that these two women have a lot in common. they're both very humble, and as I said, St. Teresa had a very self-deprecating sense of humor, which I think also Mother St. John did too. St. Teresa, there's so many more writings, of hers that we have to access. So I feel like there's more of a sense of her humor than I can find, for Mother St. John. But yeah, I feel like, yes, yeah, absolutely. I think Mother St. John would definitely have thought, wow, that woman, she was pretty amazing, and she levitated. But yeah, yes, I do.
Yes, wonderful. You talked about this a little bit in the piece, but one of the things that's so amazing about the Sisters of St. Joseph is that they are called to what the need is, right? So there's an openness to the way in which they minister, and I think that's so important because it has, as we saw in the first presentation today, it has allowed them to grow and meet the needs of the times, which I wonder, have you thought at all about what do you think Mother St. John would be called to today in 2023? What needs of the world?
Yeah, I have. I think I actually, thinking about the parallels of the women that I've presented, I think we just bring Dorothy Day right in there. I think that Mother St. John and Dorothy Day would be besties. I think she would be directly addressing the need of the homeless, and feeding the hungry. I mean, that in itself is such a huge problem in our world today. In fact, being from the San Francisco area and I lived in San Francisco for many years. The homeless problem it's agonizing, and I think she would be right there in the middle of it, and trying to figure out ways to lift these people up that need our help. I also think that I could imagine her creating another working center for women. She would do the same thing she did back then. If she lived now, she would find jobs for women that needed them, probably men too. I think the other thing she would do, and working for the marginalized, anyone marginalized. I also think she would try to bridge the differences in our world, socially and economically and politically. And I feel like she would just be that person that would say, hey, can't we all get along and figure out ways? I think she was a very creative force in her time. Does that answer the question?
It answered it for me. That was wonderful. I had a student visit the CSJ Institute yesterday who's working on a research project looking at our founding sisters. So first six, and also Mother St. John and Jane de Chantal. And she said to me, her first question was, do you know if our sisters ever did anything that would have addressed healthcare disparities at the times that they were living? And I said, how much time do you have? So I think, to your point, it is this sort of continued practice of meeting these needs and addressing the people and meeting them where they are. Another great question in here, a little bit more about your process. What dramatic artists have inspired your performances? Are there other contemporary religious programs or dramas that you enjoy? Selfishly, I'd love to know what you're watching, because I feel like people who are in the industry have great taste. So what do you recommend?
You're so cute, Meredith. Wow. I mean, I've been doing this for so long. Obviously, well, not obviously, but just going back to my, drama school days and thinking about what practitioners inspired me. And I would have to say, like, Uta Hagen and Stanislavski, of course, but the folks that are more modern, that have really cemented, for me, the diversity that I find is intriguing in acting. Susan Sarandon, she's someone that I've always been really just aspire to be more in her realm of acting. Trying to think, and faithful folks. I have seen a couple of a woman and a man present their monologues prior to when I had started doing mine. And I have to say, it inspired me to want to, not only be truthful in telling the stories of these particular women, but also remembering that one of my first loves is acting, and trying to be truthful and realistic, and not, I mean, of course I could just pick apart my performance of my but the thing is that is just being grounded in truthful emotion. And so I think that that's something that I look for. I mean, you can tell when people are phoning it in or not present. As to what I'm watching, Meredith, that is very interesting. Let's see. Ted Lasso, of course. I mean, you have to watch that. Now I have to think, what have I been watching? We'll have to come back to that.
That's okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You and I will have a one-on-one.
Yes, exactly. I have your phone number, and I can see how, I don't know if she's with us right now, but Gail Krause, one of our campus ministers, did a little reflection once in some of the values of Ted Lasso and some of the, values of our own faith. And so I could see how Mother St. John and he would have,
Totally.
would have had a great time in leadership together.
Yeah.
We have time for maybe one or two more questions if anybody wants to throw one into the chat or into the Q&A. And I'll ask you, what are your, you've done this performance at high schools, you've done this performance, here with us and at the Mount. What are your dreams for this monologue as we continue to, get to be able to do things more in person? And if folks were interested in connecting with you about bringing this performance to their institution?
Great question. I was just actually talking with Sister Marie Mackey here, and she works with a lot of the high schools, and I just feel like that community, those communities, that age group, that generation, they would really, it would serve them to see her story, and not just read about her story, but have it shown to them in a way that I hope is relevant to them. Particularly because I think reading these days for our the timing, just today's generation, there's not a lot of, well, I shouldn't say that, but it just doesn't seem like there's a lot of reading going on as much as, the soundbite, and TikTok, et cetera, and everything else. So I think bringing her to the young, well, and the old, you know what, I'd really love to show it to a group of sisters, just strictly, the sisters, and because I had such a wonderful experience when I was at the Mount. The reaction from mostly, the sisters was just, it was just so touching, because they felt like I did bring somewhat, an honest approach to who Mother St. John would be. So, I am game. I'm an adventurer. I would love to just bring her wherever anyone would like to meet her. She is in the house.
That is wonderful. And if folks are interested in that, I think they can connect with Martha, who would be able to connect them directly with you about what that might look like, and what those offerings are.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other final questions as we wrap up this time together? Someone just put in the chat, the simplicity, joy, and friendliness of the Sisters of St. Joseph through their charism of openness to all is very inspiring. Thank you for this presentation of Mother St. John. I echo those sentiments, and I'm so grateful for this time together and the opportunity to connect with you, Tiffany. And I will say, I'm looking at this list of who is in the room, and I see many of our Sisters of St. Joseph names in here, and I am sure that they are giving you that applause from wherever they are today and have enjoyed this. And so at this point, I'm going to hand it back over to Martha, who is going to let us know what the rest of our day looks like. And I want to thank Tiffany for being with us, and thank you for allowing me to moderate the Q&A, and a very special thanks to all of the hard work of Martha on this conference and Dr. McMurdoch for the wonderful welcome to this session.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
And just to add to that, thank you, Tiffany, and thank you to Meredith. Tiffany, you have really brought Mother St. John Fontbonne to life for us today, and we are so grateful for this, and we're so glad that Mount St. Mary's University commissioned this piece, and you've shared this performance with us today. On Sunday, I'll be leading a group with Sister Joan Lashinsky, a group of 18 students and 3 staff members from our member institutions on a pilgrimage to Le Puy and Lyon. And while it's my second pilgrimage, you have provided such a deeper layer of understanding that I will take with me when I visit her room at the Mother House in Lyon, her childhood home, and her grave. So Tiffany, I think I speak for all of us here today in saying that we are so grateful for your work. It is such an honor and a privilege to carry on her legacy, and thank you for bringing her to life again with us today.
You're very welcome.
Well, please join us for our next session in about 15 minutes on critical conversations, spotlighting DEI, SJ trends, and best practices in times of great backlash. We'll meet at 2:30 Eastern Time, 1:30 Central, and 11:30 Pacific. We hope to see you here very soon. The Zoom link is in the conference guide, and it is a different Zoom link from the one that you've experienced for the last 2 sessions. So thank you, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you very much.